true. That's true. Easy for listening. I was able to do it. Easy for dancing. I'm not a great lover of cats. That's my fear. You're a disgrace, you are. Not me. That's my fear. You're a disgrace, you are.
Hello and welcome to Have Your Say, one-on-one shadowboxing. Today my guest, not in WTV studios, but in Melbourne, Craig Isherwood. Better to say that.
Yeah. Well.
Craig, when I interviewed you last time, you being in Perth.
That's right.
But you running the CEC from Melbourne.
Yes.
So tell us something what CEC is. Refresh the people's memory.
Okay, well the Citizens Electoral Council is a political party, federally registered political party, and this is our 30th year, Tibor, so we've been around for a long time. And we campaign very strongly on the idea that we actually have to develop our nation through large-scale infrastructure development projects, but we need things like a national bank to do that, to create the credit for that, but we also have to bring under control the financial system.
So what do you started 30 years ago with? Because this was not the policy that time.
No, it was a very populist policy because we were all farmers and we didn't know what we were doing. So it was citizens-initiated referendum at that time. But after about a year, as most political parties that start with good ideas, we sort of internally collapsed. But we then became associated with the international LaRouche movement, and we started to deepen our philosophical ideas and understand that if you're going to be a political party in this country, you've got to stand for something. And that's what we do.
Very true. That's very true.
We haven't deviated for 30 years, Tibor, on this policy. And people can go to our website and see what we stand for, and they'll say, that's not really a political party. I mean, we're so different because although we send candidates for
elections,
elections and stuff like that, we don't compromise on the truth of what needs to be done for our country. And that does send shivers down the spines of a lot of politicians.
And you are nationwide political party,
yes.
So registered in each of the states.
Yes, that's right. I mean, we have state secretaries in each of the states.
Even in WA?
In WA. In fact, you'll see us in the Hay Street Mall from time to time.
Yeah.
With a literature table and handing out literature and talking to people. And we like people to get involved in our organisation first and foremost to understand what's taking place in the world.
So which state you are the biggest? Obviously in Victoria, not WA.
Well, no, actually I think we've got a lot of support in WA.
Yes.
We have a program on Channel 31 over there.
44.
44 it is.
Channel 44.
44, yeah, okay, sorry.
Perth. Yes.
Depends on which state you are in.
Yes.
But no, we have a lot of supporters that watch the CEC report on your station over there. So consequently, there's a lot of support in WA. There's a lot of support in Victoria and also in Queensland. Not so much in New South Wales because we don't have a presence in Sydney. We have a presence in regional areas in the country. But look, what we find is that people are sick to death of the current batch of politicians.
That's what I wanted to ask. Why you are in politics? I mean, it's not many people want to be in politics because they say politicians are idiots. So why you?
It was never intention. My wife and I's intention to be into politics.
Yes.
But we saw that there was a real lack of parties that actually stood for real policies and real principles. See, we start from the philosophical principle, Tibor, that all human beings are fundamentally different than other animals, that we are endowed with creative. We're endowed with creative reason, which means that if you educate people, if you supply them with good housing and good infrastructure and so forth to support their families, and you also then support industry and the entrepreneurial nature of a lot of Australians. Australians are very, very inventive bunch, and if you support that through what we call national banking. Then you can have a completely different country than we've got today. In fact, we used to have some of these policies within these traits within our countries, but in the last 30 to 40 years, as you no doubt know, those qualities have been smashed out of people because we've got a system now that's basically centred on speculation. You've got a mortgage bubble. You've got all sorts of problems in the financial system.
And not really family-centred either.
No, not family-centred.
Is not family-loving.
So we've had a breakdown in that area, and we try to address all those issues from the love of the idea of the future of our country. If we don't have people of principle in Parliament that are prepared to stand up and fight for principle, which a lot of Australians don't see these days in their members, because we have a two-party tyranny, system, I call it. No, tyranny, not system. all right?
Yeah, almost monopoly.
And I think people disengage from the political process here in Australia because they lose hope. They say, what can be done? We can't do anything about this. And the two-party system...
Can we? That's
well,
a good question.
that's what we're doing.
Okay, now, what you're doing. I think, as I know some of your activities, you not only considered about Australia as such, you are looking outside Australia as well, looking at the world and what's happening around us from the Australian point of view,
Yeah.
usually. So let's go into some of the issues of today, of this year, as it's shaping up. Syria.
Yeah.
Which is a long-standing, more than 7 years sort of problem created by some really clever Americans and some other European allies. So what is going on in Syria according to your understanding? And then when you just outlining the global story there, we should go into the latest one, which has just happened a week ago, when the war is broken from 3 allies and Syria between. So let's start with Syria. What is the freaking problem there?
Well, I don't think there's a problem with Syria at all.
So why have we got 7 years war?
Because you've got a very strong leader, like
Yes.
in Bashar al-Assad.
Yes.
He represents the people of Syria. In fact, the people like him. They love him, in fact, right? Because he actually does look after their populations. But you'd never hear that on the Australian media or the international media, because of the fact that the Australian media is controlled very precisely in order to give the line. If you're trying, look,
But
for example,
the international media and the Australian media say he is a monster. He is someone
And-
we don't need to understand.
and they said the same thing about Gaddafi. They said the same thing about
All the regime changes.
all the
yes.
regime changes. You know, Saddam Hussein, they went in there, particularly the British,
Yep.
at the behest of the British in particular, manipulating to some degree the Americans. And people don't get this. They think they look at what the Americans are doing and they're saying, oh, it's all the Americans' fault. But no, go and look a bit, have a look a bit closer and you'll see it's the British in there stirring the pot, particularly Tony Blair. Any chance for a war, Tony Blair's into it.
Yeah, he was in the war. He jumped into the
exactly.
war, and he created with his secret services
And
the very good reasons for war to go into and supply the Americans with the British knowledge of the secrets.
Exactly. And the point is that you have there...
He was almost crying when he almost, apologized from the nation.
Yeah, he wasn't serious.
No.
He
But
wasn't serious.
it was a very nice performance
Oh, of
on
course.
television live. I
Yep.
love it. He is not. He's a talented man. Okay, sorry. Back to
Look, the issue with Syria is also Russia, right? And
yeah.
Russia is one
So
of
the issue with Syria was very simple before Russia in September jumped into the war, and the Russians just say, okay, he's just fucking around and he never want to be these ISIS guys. We will show you how to do it. So they just went there and they just
Look, the
almost
Americans-
win now.
The Americans were shown to be funding these ISIS terrorists. This is what's been going on behind the scenes. You never hear that story.
Of course, but that's what is happening. And what's the reason for the Americans to funding all these terrorists?
Because it's not just the Americans that are doing it, like I said
No.
before. You've got a geopolitical game here in order to create massive destabilisations in the Middle East by continuing what goes back to the early 20th century
That's
policy.
ongoing more than 20 years now.
I know, but this goes back
destabilization.
to the policy of what's called Sykes-Picot, where the British
Okay.
went in there.
When was that? Which year? Which year was that?
Yes, about the 20s and the 30s, right,
Yes.
prior to World War II. And they went in there after World War I, right, and they actually
Yes.
broke up all these countries. And in order to create the policy of, break apart and then control, this is how the British tend to work.
This is salami tactic?
In terms of having strong sovereign nation states with strong leaders, right, you can't allow that to happen because that might mean you've got peace. And this is really where the issue is with Syria right now.
Yeah.
Because President Trump, when he came in, right, had the intention of trying to cooperate and develop a real working relationship.
Even before that, he said we don't need to be involved in that many wars, and regime change is not for us.
He did not.
And it's cost us lots of money, which we should spend at home. But before we're going furthermore, I think we're just going for a short break. But please stay with us, because after the break, we're coming back with much more discussion with Craig Isherwood of the CDC.